Have you ever looked at your life and wondered why the same kind of obstacle keeps returning with a different face? Have you ever felt that your destiny is not random at all but somehow patterned, as if your choices are tracing the same shape again and again? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about Tantric numerology readings and what people hope to find in them and what they actually need to find in themselves. Many people come to numerology searching for a shortcut to certainty. They want a map that tells them who they are, what they should do, and while life feels difficult. But the deeper value of any numerology system is not prediction. It is reflection. The first idea is that numbers can be used as a mirror for awakening meaning. It can help you notice the patterns you keep repeating in mind, speech, and action. The second idea is that once you see the pattern, you can change the cause, and when the cause changes, the karma changes, and when karma changes, destiny becomes a path instead of a prison. Let me begin with a story that will sound familiar, even if you have never cared about numerology. There was someone who said, "I am tired of being confused. Every year I promise myself I will change. Every month I make a plan. Every week I start again. And somehow I end up back in the same place." They were not lazy. They were not ignorant. They were simply stuck in repetition. Their mind would say, "I will focus." Then anxiety would rise and the mind would escape into distraction. Their mind would say, "I will be kinder." Then stress would rise and they would snap at the closest person. Their mind would say, "I will save money." Then insecurity would rise and they would spend impulsively to feel safe for a moment. They felt haunted by their own cycles. One day they booked a numerology reading. Not because they believed numbers are magical, because they wanted an explanation that felt bigger than their shame. They wanted to stop blaming themselves and start understanding themselves. The reader asked them for basic information and then began describing themes like strengths, challenges, and lessons. The person listened with mixed feelings. Some points felt accurate. Some points felt vague. But one thing stood out. The reader did not talk like a fortune teller. The reader talked like a pattern observer. They said something like this in plain language: "Your life is not only what happens to you. Your life is also what you repeat inside you. And what you repeat becomes your road." That sentence landed hard because it was simple and it was true. Now here is where we need to be honest. People often read numerology like destiny math. They think, if I know my number, I will know my future. But the deeper spiritual view is different. A number is not a cage. It is a spotlight. It points toward tendencies. Tendencies are not commands. Tendencies are invitations for practice. This is why I want to connect this topic to awakening wisdom, karma, compassion, practice, and destiny in a grounded way. Awakening means you stop living on automatic. You begin to notice your inner movements. You begin to see how fear pushes you, how craving pulls you, how pride protects you, how shame punishes you. When you see these movements, you gain a small pause. That pause is freedom. Wisdom means you understand cause and effect in your own life. You stopped reading your habits as personality and start treating them as causes. You see that the way you speak creates relationship consequences. You see that the way you spend creates financial consequences. You see that the way you avoid creates stress consequences. Wisdom is not a quote. Wisdom is the ability to predict your own outcomes because you finally see what you are planting. Karma is the momentum of those causes. Karma is not punishment. Karma is repetition turning into reality. When you repeat anger, you build an angry life. When you repeat avoidance, you build a stuck life. When you repeat compassion, you build a safer life. When you repeat patience, you build a steadier life. Compassion is what keeps the whole process humane. Because when you begin to see your patterns, you may feel guilt. You may feel regret. You may feel embarrassed. Without compassion, you will turn insight into self-attack. Self-attack creates more fear. Fear creates more avoidance. Avoidance creates more repetition. The loop continues. Compassion breaks the loop. Compassion says, "I see the pattern and I will learn without violence." Practice is how you turn insight into change. Practice means daily returning. It means you do not wait for mood. You return when you are bored. You return when you are stressed. You return when you fail. Returning is the real spiritual power. Destiny is what happens when practice becomes consistent. Destiny is not only the big events. Destiny is the long shadow of daily choices. So how does Tantric numerology fit into this? If it is used well, it becomes a language for patterns. A language that can help you name what is happening, so you can stop being hypnotized by it. Let me continue the story. After the reading, the person felt both hopeful and unsettled. Hopeful because the idea of patterns made sense. Unsettled because patterns mean responsibility. If my life is patterned, then I cannot blame everything on luck. I have to look at what I repeat. So they did something unusual. They wrote down the themes that resonated, not as prophecy, as mirrors. Then for a week they watched themselves. They watched their speech. They watched their habits. They watched their thoughts. They discovered that their biggest obstacle was not lack of talent. It was the speed of their reaction. They reacted before they understood. They spoke before they breathed. They scrolled before they felt the feeling underneath. They made decisions to escape discomfort rather than to build a future. This is where many people misunderstand their own destiny. They think destiny is what the world gives them, but often destiny is what their nervous system demands from them. A nervous system trained in fear demands quick relief. Quick relief creates long-term problem. Those problems feel like fate. So they began practicing something simple. Every time they felt urgency, they paused for one breath. One breath only. Then they chose. Sometimes they still chose poorly. But the pause grew. The pause created a new habit. The new habit began reshaping the day. Now notice what happened. A numerology reading did not give them a magical solution. It pointed them toward the real work. The real work was awareness and discipline and compassion. This is why I say the real number is the habit you repeat every day. Because even if numerology says you have a certain tendency, the tendency only becomes destiny if it is repeated unconsciously. If you bring awareness, the tendency becomes a lesson instead of a sentence. Now I want to explore why people are attracted to systems like Tantric numerology in the first place. People are tired of randomness. They want meaning. When something hurts, they want it to mean something. They want a story that makes the pain bearable. And meaning is not wrong. Meaning can be medicine. But there is a danger. The mind can use meaning to avoid action. It can say, this is my number, so this is who I am. It can turn a tendency into an excuse. That is spiritual laziness disguised as identity. A mature approach is different. A mature approach says, if this is my tendency, then this is my practice. If I tend toward impatience, then my practice is patience. If I tend toward overthinking, then my practice is embodied presence. If I tend toward harshness, then my practice is gentleness. If I tend toward avoidance, then my practice is steady effort. The number becomes a compass, not a cage. Now let us bring compassion into the center again, because it is easy to become harsh when you look at your flaws. The person in the story noticed they had a lifelong inner critic. The critic did not motivate them. It exhausted them. It said, you are behind, you are weak, you never finish, you never change. They had believed this voice for years and called it realism. During their week of observation, they saw that the critic voice was strongest right before they sabotaged themselves. It would attack and then they would escape into distraction. The escape would create consequences and the consequences would feed the critic again. That loop had been running for years. So they tried something radical. They treated the critic as a frightened part, not as truth. When the critic spoke, they responded with a softer inner phrase, like, I hear you and we will take one step. They did not argue. They did not surrender. They returned to one step. That is compassion as practice. Over time, something changed. Their energy increased because they were not fighting themselves all day. With more energy, they could focus. With focus, they could follow through. With follow-through, their self-trust grew. With self-trust, their fear reduced. With reduced fear, their life opened. That is karma changing. Now we should address the wealth and destiny questions that often come with numerology. People ask, will I be successful? Will I be rich? Will I find love? Here is the honest answer. No system can guarantee outcomes because life has many variables, but a system can point you toward causes. And causes are where your power lies. If you want success, the causes often include discipline, honesty, patience, skill building, and good relationships. If you want wealth, the causes often include steady income, planning, reducing impulsive spending, learning how money works, and healing the fear patterns that sabotage. If you want love, the causes often include emotional maturity, clear communication, boundaries, compassion, and the courage to be seen. These causes are spiritual causes too because they require overcoming ego, fear, and reactivity. That is why I keep tying it back to awakening and practice. The person in our story began applying this cause-based thinking. Instead of asking what will happen, they asked, what should I practice? That question changed everything. They began practicing one act of discipline daily. Not extreme. One meaningful act. Finish one task fully. Send one honest message. Do one short meditation. Walk for 10 minutes. Sleep earlier. Apologize once. Those small actions were seeds. Within months, their life felt different. Again, not perfect, but different. More stable, more clear, more hopeful. Now let me share a second story because some listeners will relate more to relationships than work. There was another person who kept attracting the same kind of relationship pain. Different faces, same pattern. At first, everything felt intense and magical. Then jealousy rose. Then mistrust rose. Then arguments grew. Then the relationship broke. They would blame the other person. Then they would find someone new and the same pattern returned. They got a numerology reading hoping it would tell them when they would meet the right person. But the reader said something more useful. You keep repeating the same emotional script. Your lesson is not finding the perfect person. Your lesson is becoming a steadier person. That hurt to hear because it removed the fantasy, but it also gave power back. The person began practicing emotional steadiness. They practiced noticing jealousy before it became accusation. They practiced asking for reassurance without attacking. They practiced setting boundaries calmly. They practiced not checking the phone in panic. They practiced trusting in uncertainty without creating drama. This practice changed their karma. The next relationship was different because they were different. Again, destiny is not only who you meet. Destiny is who you are when you meet them. Now let us address the spiritual side of numbers without getting lost in theory. Numbers are symbols of patterns, and patterns are everywhere. Breath is pattern. Sleep is pattern. Speech is pattern. Spending is pattern. Attention is pattern. What you consume mentally is pattern. Your reactions are patterns. So a numerology reading can be valuable when it helps you notice your patterns and choose a better pattern. That better pattern is practice. Practice is the bridge between insight and destiny. Now I want to offer you a grounded way to use any reading without becoming dependent on it. First, use it to name your likely obstacles, not to fear them, to practice against them. Second, choose one daily practice that directly counters the obstacle. If your obstacle is scattered attention, practice one short daily focus session. If your obstacle is harsh speech, practice one pause before speaking. If your obstacle is procrastination, practice starting one task early. If your obstacle is anxiety, practice one slow breathing routine daily. Third, measure progress by character, not by fireworks. Are you kinder? Are you steadier? Are you more honest? Are you less reactive? Are you more responsible? That is real spiritual growth. Fourth, keep compassion present. You will fail sometimes. Failing is part of learning. The difference is whether you return. Now I will bring this toward a closing reflection with something that often creates deep resonance. Many people want to know their purpose. They ask, what is my life mission? But purpose is not only one big job or one big role. Purpose is how you meet each moment. Are you awake or asleep? Are you wise or reactive? Are you compassionate or harsh? Are you building karma that frees you or karma that traps you? If a numerology reading helps you ask these questions, then it is serving the path. And if it makes you more humble, more responsible, and more kind, then it is truly useful. Thank you for being here with me today. If you came to this topic hoping for a shortcut, I hope you leave with something better than a shortcut. A map back to your own power. Because the deepest power is not in prediction. The deepest power is in practice. Now I want to invite you to share your story in the comments. Have you ever felt trapped in a repeating pattern, and what do you think the lesson is beneath it? And have you ever tried any kind of numerology or self-reflection system, and did it help you become more awake, more wise, and more compassionate in daily life? If you want more long-form videos that connect inner practice with awakening wisdom, karma, compassion, and destiny, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment so more people can find this space. Your support helps keep these conversations alive and helps turn self-knowledge into real transformation.